Today, the abortion rights bill fails in the Senate, and it turns out the FBI was actually targeting concerned parents as terrorists, and the Biden administration cancels more oil and gas lease sales, almost like all of this is totally intentional. We'll get into all that and more, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, and it's another BlazeTV family day. We've got BlazeTV contributors all at the table. We are joined by Jaco Booyens, host of The Bottom Line. Also joined by, this is her maiden voyage on the show, Shamika Michelle, who is BlazeTV contributor, usually seen on Jason Whitlock's show, also author of the book Keep It Naked, and we are joined once again by Delano Squires. He is BlazeTV contributor. Also, you can find him usually on Jason Whitlock's show and CEO of Civitas Consulting Group. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Especially, you guys who are here from out of town.
Yeah.
No pressure, just don't screw it up.
Oh,
right, just kidding. And we don't have a lack of things to talk about today. I'll put it that way. Yesterday, the Senate failed to pass the bill that would have not only, they kept saying it was going to codify Roe versus Wade, but that's not really the case. It was going to expand abortion. The bill ensured access to an abortion until a fetus is viable, which they say usually is around 23 to 24 weeks, but they would have overridden state laws currently in place that impose restrictions at earlier dates. It would allow abortions after viability when a healthcare provider determines the pregnancy would pose a risk to the patient's life or health. It failed 49 to 51. Joe Manchin did vote against it. He was the lone Democrat who I'm not sure that he can call himself a Democrat anymore at this point in time, not because he's moved, but because the party has left him. He said that this went too far. I want to get into just kind of the specifics of, they want to throw in if the pregnancy poses a risk to the patient's life or health. But usually when you get into these bills, the wording is very unclear. The wording is so general that they could say it affects the woman's mental health, right? And so then you can use it to mean all these different things. Well, the woman is depressed. The woman is worried that she might not have enough money to raise the baby. It opens you up to a whole plethora of excuses that aren't necessarily, this is an emergency because the mother might die. And I want to compare just for a second here, just so the audience understands how radical the left has gotten in America. Here are a few abortion restrictions in European countries. Sweden, they allow it until 18 weeks, after which you need a valid medical reason. Poland, they only allow it in instances of rape or incest or to save the life of the mother. And in Malta, it's completely illegal. Over in the UK, I mean, you've just got, I think that they are looking at us and they're going, whoa, we consider ourselves progressive, but you guys are literally just killing babies. You're just killing fully formed babies just for the fun of it or something. It's odd.
Right.
Yeah, look, as Americans, 72 million plus, who's counting at this point, babies. But I want to focus on one thing. I did a show on this the other day, and I wanted to go into the threat on the life of the mother. In 1933, when women were dying at what was considered a high rate in birth, terrible conditions for labor, terrible conditions, medical conditions, infections, etc. 0.68% of women, so 680 women per 100,000 died in birth. So 0.6%. In 2020, it was 0.2. 238 women per 100,000 died.
Wow.
Okay? That's how little it is. So I said, okay, I just want to see in California, how dangerous is it to walk in California? In 2020, 0.9% of people who just walked in California died.
Oh, wow.
983 people died by just walking out of every 100,000 people who walked.
Yeah.
So it's more dangerous in California today to just walk, not doing something crazy, bungee jumping, just walking, rather than your chance of dying in labor. So it's a non-conversation starter, right? But yet they'll pull it because it gets a lot of sizzle if you bring that into the conversation.
Yeah, I want to also bring up, I want to hear from you guys, but I want to bring up Elizabeth Warren, the Native American Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself, who, yes, who she was really angry. She says after this vote, she says that somehow she probably took Common Core math, so that might be what the case is, but she's very mad that the minority, she says, prevailed in this 49 to 51 vote. Watch.
I believe in democracy, and I don't believe that the minority should have the ability to block things that the majority want to do. That's not in the Constitution. What we're talking about right now are the individual rights and liberties of half the population of the United States of America. I think that's enough to say it's time to get rid of the filibuster. We need to protect voting rights. We need to protect women's rights. And understand this, Mitch McConnell has made clear, they're coming after everybody.
I mean, these people really are just doubling down on killing all the babies, it seems. It's just interesting because they always talk about democracy this, democracy that. We have to preserve our democracy at all costs. And then when the country is working the way that it was supposed to, the way that it was set up, they complain that the minority somehow prevailed, even though this was obviously she was in the minority, otherwise it would have advanced.
Right. Elizabeth Warren is funny to me because, listen, she doesn't even have to worry about this, right? We would have to pull it out and blow it off before anybody could ever get close to it. And it just amazes me that even in her old age, that she doesn't have any type of common sense. Like for me, I used to be one of the people that thought, okay, in rape or molestation, or okay, up to a certain amount of time. But as I have seen people use abortion as a method of birth control, it has completely disgusted me. And I'm like, we have to have some type of parameters around this because people are just using it like, it's nothing. Like they're taking out the trash, oh, I'll have an abortion. That is not okay. And you would think that an older woman who is supposed to lead the younger women would have a little more common sense. And so when I see someone like Warren saying the things that she's saying, I'm like, where's the wisdom that comes with age? She doesn't have any.
She skipped that.
Yeah.
She skipped that for sure. Look, you listen to what she's advocating for, eliminating the filibuster, going all in, trying to basically take advantage of the majority that they have. She's really, I would argue, really advocating for the actual tyranny of the majority, which is something that our founding fathers warned about in Federalist 51.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the left talk about how kids are not being taught properly in school. But when they talk about that we're a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, right? So that the majority rule is not always what ends up having laws be passed, because if that was the case, Brown versus Board of Ed, probably would have not been decided the way it was. We would still be living in the land of separate but equal. But I mean, I think to Yaku's point, the left has become so radical in the area of abortion. They went from safe, legal, and rare during the Clinton era to shout your abortion in what seems like a split second. And it shows that they have a very low ethic of life, because to them, a child, human life is only valuable to the extent that a child is wanted by its mother, and to the extent that that child is not blocking that woman from education or economic opportunities. And that says a lot. And when you have such a low value on life in the womb, you shouldn't be surprised when that continues outside. And we've seen children be the people who suffer the most from COVID lockdowns and being shut out of school. Overdose deaths are up, suicides are up, homicide is up. And I think all of those things are a straight line from conception through whole of life.
Yeah, it is. It does feel like we are in this strange place in America where we are so lucky, we are so privileged that we think that life isn't worth it if there's any adversity for any parties, right? Because you hear all the time, I mean, you just mentioned if the mother is poor or whatever, oh well, she can't have a baby because that might give her some adversity. You also hear it as an argument for the child, right? Well, you don't want a child that might be adopted and have to go through
Or
the
grow up in
adoption
foster care.
agency. Right. It's like, wait,
But that's
so we're
literally
just
playing
saying,
God.
yeah, we're
Right.
just
Correct.
saying that like if that someone should only be born if they don't have any obstacles in life.
Right. Which is the only way you actually grow tough in life.
Right.
You know, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, in
Right.
fact, and that's how you build character, and it's how you become a man who goes through trials and by your testimony.
Right.
You know, but if we really look at it and you line it all up, the most effective tool to move a nation is, in fact, its children. Heck, Hitler said that. If you can get into the nation's children, here comes Disney. We can have this conversation. So it's an effective tool, number one. Make it a women's issue. It's not a women's issue. Abortion is about a child. There's another life. It's like in defunding the police, I go, remember, there's a person in the uniform.
Right.
It's not just a uniform. There's a life in the womb. If you have to be insane to look at a first trimester, four-dimensional image and not go, that's a human being.
Correct. Yeah,
Period.
definitely.
End of story. So it's a choice of who lives and who dies. So and then you need to look at the fastest religion growing is atheism, which is deifying yourself as God. So all of a sudden, this is a anti-God movement of we want to decide who lives and who dies. And if we decide that you get to live and you don't play by our rules, then we're going to come for you anyway.
Yeah.
You know? So it's literally just, it's all that wrapped in one, because to your brilliant point, there's no value of life. This is why you can see people be killed in a riot and it's peaceful.
Right.
Mostly
Right.
peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly peaceful.
But even the other thing, if you listen to the left, and particularly the way that they frame abortion now, which is around, it's a racial justice issue. They all say, black women and Hispanic or Latinx women are going to suffer, or LGBTQ women or non-binary women are going to suffer the most from abortion, and poor women. Just think about what's not being said. That means that we think that the women who should have the most babies are middle class, privileged, white women.
Margaret
who are
Sanger's dream.
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure.
And I thought this was the party of
Yeah.
diversity, inclusion, and equity, and it is, because they are pushing a die agenda. Because that's everything that the left pushes now leads people toward death.
Yep.
The abortion stuff, the trans stuff,
Culture of death.
the defunding the police stuff. So they're consistent in their messaging. They can't get their logic straight, but they're consistent in being illogical as well.
Yeah, it is true. They are a death cult. I want to get back to something you said, Shamika, which is kind of your evolution of, I used to think like, okay, maybe we can have this, but just like with some restrictions. But in order to do that, let me play really quickly Elizabeth Warren. We're going to go back to her because she makes a statement that because the majority, she says the majority of Americans want abortion, that means that Roe versus Wade should stand, as if the Supreme Court should be like listening to public opinion before they make their choices. But let's listen to that really quick.
Roe versus Wade is something that is supported across this country. About 69% of people say Roe versus Wade should be the law of the land. And that's true, red states, blue states. It's true, Republicans, Democrats want to see us preserve Roe versus Wade.
So I think that, number one, it's very clear that there's a lot of confusion when people are asked the question.
Correct.
They think that if they turn that case over, that automatically means banning abortion everywhere, right? So obviously there's some confusion right off the bat. But I want to get into something you said, Shamika, which is, by the way, when I was in college, I was like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable with the government making decisions about what I can do. I was like, it wasn't something I was super passionate about, but I thought like, yeah, that doesn't really feel right. And as I grew, and I was like, okay, this isn't right. But I think a lot of what pushed me there was the left's insistence on abortion up until the point of birth.
Correct.
Plus maybe keep the infant comfortable if you're Ralph Northam,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I do think that there are a lot of Americans who think just like you do, who are starting to have an evolution. There was a Gallup poll. This is from a few years back, not even recently, that showed that only 28% of Americans favor allowing abortion in the second trimester. 13% of Americans favor allowing it in the last 3 months of pregnancy, which is still sad. And then 60% who would allow it in the first trimester. Do you think that maybe we've even shifted a little bit more conservative there, only because of how the left, it just has to hang on to abortion all the way throughout birth, anytime I want it for any reason, don't take that away from me?
Yes, for sure. I think when you see women screaming in the streets, shouting how many abortions they've had, or there was a video that came out last week where this woman had the little doll babies, and she was That's insane. And I think no one wants to line up with insanity if they have any type of sense. And so I do think that that has been a wake-up call for a lot of people to say, okay, I think it's going a little bit too far. For me, I am a product of rape. And my mother was raped at 14. I was born at 15. But just knowing her story, I always had this sense of, well, I would hate to make another woman go through a pregnancy. So I had that little compassion in me, like I wouldn't want that to happen. Even though I had life and I was grateful that I had life, I had, okay, well, if they were in that situation, I wouldn't want them to go through what my mom had to go through. And then as a young person at 22, I had an abortion. But I think what really did it for me is at 22, I was told by the abortion doctor, it's just a lump of cells. And then once I was married and, you know, we had a planned pregnancy and I'm in there and we had an ultrasound just to confirm my pregnancy, the doctor goes, look, right there, that's the heartbeat. And I realized that the abortion that I had, I was further along and I'm like, that was not a clump of cells. And I just cried because I was thinking, what have I done? Even after I had the abortion, I was really sad. But I think seeing that on the screen, that now this baby has a heartbeat, whereas I killed one that obviously had to have had one as well. We're not telling women the truth. People don't know what's really real about abortion. It's a very devastating thing to go through. You literally have the life sucked from you. I think people need to be given the real, clear answers around abortion. And then if you decide to make that decision, more power to you. It was something that my heart wouldn't allow me to do. I know people that have had 4 or 5 abortions, late term. I think that it messes not only with your body, with your mental ability, and I think women need to know the real truth around it, and they don't.
Sorry, real quick. Every form of abuse, we fight child trafficking, and that's what we do. Every form of abuse, you find force, fraud, and coercion. I mean, every form of abuse. So if what you just said, that doctor coerced you by saying it's just a lump of cells. Look at what the left is doing. They're coercing women to come out in the streets and go radical. And I actually think they're making the best case why Roe v. Wade should be overturned when you look at California saying up to 28 to 60 days post-birth.
Correct.
So to your point, women are coming and going, I cannot align with that.
I think so too. All right, we're going to get into more. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Tommy John. So look, the only way to, you may be in a state where it's not super hot yet. Well, in Texas, it's really, really hot already. And you got to stay cool this summer with a pair of brand new Tommy Johns. When you wear Tommy John, you are that much cooler, so you can do everything better thanks to their breathable, lightweight fabric with 4 times the stretch of competing brands. Tommy John, they're really, really, really comfortable. They're super cute, and you're gonna look super hot, I don't know, while feeling super cool, from lounging at home to the summertime fun. They've got over 17 million pairs sold. People love Tommy John underwear and loungewear, including me, who I say this all the time. My husband's in the control room. Maybe he can vouch for me that I come home and I'm like, please don't take the baby, take the kids. Please don't talk to me until I have my Tommy John on. Is this
correct?
Thank you. That's correct.
The voice from the sky.
Yes, I did. It's like I have to be wearing my Tommy Johns because they're literally the most comfortable thing I've ever put on my body, and it just kind of helps me de-stress from the day. By the way, you're covered with their best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free, guaranteed. You got to go there. Shop TommyJohn.com/Y for 20% off of your order. That is TommyJohn.com/Y. The GOP House Judiciary tweeted out a letter they wrote to AG Merrick Garland. The letter stated, in sworn testimony before this committee, you denied that the Department of Justice or its components were using counterterrorism statutes and resources to target parents at school board meetings. We now have evidence that, contrary to your testimony, the FBI has labeled at least dozens of investigations into parents with a threat tag created by the FBI's Counterterrorism Division to assess and track investigations related to school boards. These cases include investigations into parents upset about mask mandates, state elected officials even who voiced public opposition to vaccine mandates, and concerned parents, of course. obviously these investigations would not have taken place and were the result of the Merrick Garland's insistence to kick this over to the counterterrorism unit and them tagging all of these perceived threats as this was called EDU officials was the tag. These are whistleblowers who have opened up and come forward and said that this was happening. And, it's interesting. There's one that they opened up a snitch line. Basically, they opened up a snitch line and they said, please call if you are concerned about this. And there were people who called the snitch line and said the dad, quote, fit the profile of an insurrectionist, end quote, because he, quote, rails against the government, believes all conspiracy theories, and, quote, has a lot of guns and threatens to use them. But when an FBI agent actually interviewed the complainant, he admitted that they had no specific information or observations of any crimes or threats. But they contacted the FBI after learning the Justice Department had a website to submit tips in regards to any concerning behavior directed towards school boards. This is incredible.
So concerning behavior today is I'm a God-fearing, loving, red-blooded American who wants to stand in defense of my children. You're now a threat to the establishment because they are the antithesis of that.
Yep.
Listen, you're not a threat to our country when you're stepping up, protecting your child against comprehensive sex ed, CRT, whatever it is. You're actually just a good father and a good mother, and we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to be watchmen on the wall, stepping in where there's injustice, Ezekiel 33:7, right? Oh, the blood's on our hands. As we're talking about abortion, the blood's on our hands. So, no, I say double down, right? They're squirming. This is like a fish on dry land, right? It's fun for me to watch this happen because, to your point, they're consistent in the lies and they're not inconsistent, but they're not. There's no conviction and protection for life in this country. And again, it's like go after the ones who are coming against policies to indoctrinate children, and that makes you anti-American. No, that makes you a good citizen.
Yeah. I mean, we all have kids here.
Right.
It's like you're concerned, you might be a terrorist.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if my children were younger, of course my youngest is 17, but if they were younger in the times that we're living in today, I would be on the FBI's most wanted list. I know for sure. Because I've been looking at some of the videos, that Libs of TikTok put out with the liberal teachers.
Yep.
And I was thinking, we need to make teachers afraid again.
Yes.
Because I know for a fact my children's teachers were scared of me. And it never mattered to me exactly what they thought. If they thought I was going to come up there and intelligently speak my concern, or if they thought, while they were getting gas on the way home, I was going to jump out in all black. It didn't matter. You better treat my children right and do what you're supposed to do while they're in your care.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way all parents should be. We should be concerned and paying attention and involved in our children's education. 100%. So I know for a fact I'd be smiling on a picture somewhere.
That's why we homeschool, because if we don't homeschool, they'll call the cops because I will. The South African will come out and we deal with things a little differently in Africa.
I mean, it's the same thing. Me and my wife, we decided to homeschool as well because I started to see where the school was going in terms of that indoctrination, and that's both on race essentialism. Even though this school is 96% black, the teaching kids that they are victims and that they're perpetually oppressed, and as it relates to sexual orientation and gender identity, these things are not. This is not education. This is indoctrination. And I think what you're seeing from the Biden administration is the weaponization of the notion that misinformation, disinformation, or my personal favorite, malinformation, whatever that means. That thought crime is really a threat, and that's they are tenderizing us to that notion that if you think the wrong thoughts about this administration, that you're a threat to the government and to the country. And to your point, I think you said this, that you're a potential insurrectionist. So I agree with you, Yaku. It's like particularly for men, because a lot of times what you see is that a lot of these organizations, Moms for Liberty.
It's the moms.
It's moms out front. And more power to them. I thank God for them. But I want to see more men get up off the couch, put the beer down, put the game on pause, and say, I'm marching up to the school. And when before we pull our daughter out of her public charter school, It was in February 2020, this is before the pandemic. The school put up some BLM posters, and I emailed the principal and I asked him, okay, what's your stance on Black Lives Matter? He never emailed me back. And I told my wife, she's not going back. So that was the last straw for me, because
Good for you, Dad.
if you want to see me go from a mild-mannered, Shamika knows I'm on very mild-mannered,
You are.
diplomatic,
Yes.
to somebody where my wife has to say, do what Jada Pinkett Smith should have done. It's like, no,
Right.
sit back down, sit back down.
Right.
It's to start messing with our kids.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna see a totally different side of me come out. So we'll be right there. All four of us will be right there together.
Yeah.
On the watch list. So.
Yeah, it's funny too. You mentioned the BLM poster. The similar thing happened to me when I pulled my older son out of his public charter school.
Yeah.
First because of all the crazy mask stuff.
Yeah.
But after that, I had learned some of the parents they took a picture of a BLM mural that they had put in the hallway where even the kindergartners, all of the kids walk. And obviously parents were concerned. And I was like, in that moment I saw that and I was like, he's never going back.
Yeah.
He can never go back to the school. Yeah. So I homeschooled him all last year until I found a private.
I think one of the most powerful things that parents can hear is that they can do this.
Yes.
Because for anybody who's grown up in the public education system, you reach a point where you think, well, education, that's the school's job. The kids belong to the school. I'm just here to help. I'm an ally, as her charter school put it. But it's like, no, these are your children. The schools educate them, right? They act in loco parentis. And that's Latin, right? So the school is standing in the parent's stead. But the schools think that there's Spanish for these parents are crazy. And we need to take back our authority, which is God-given authority over our children.
And duty.
And duty.
We are in stewardship.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Because my children, I'm just a steward. They're God's children.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm an ill steward.
Yeah.
If I allow anybody, a family member or the school, to come indoctrinate a child.
Right.
Well, they also don't forget we're paying them to do this.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
like it's the other way around.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to be working for me because it's my child at the end of the day. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about the Biden administration canceling these oil and gas lease sales. The Biden administration halted the potential to drill for oil in over 1 million acres in Alaska's Cook Inlet, along with 2 lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico, which is one of the most high-profile oil and gas lease sales pending before the Department of Interior. This comes, obviously, as we're all seeing record high gas prices. I don't think anyone who is watching this program is a stranger to that, because all of us have to fill up our cars and go to work, go to the grocery store, where you're also paying more money, by the way. This comes also after, Joe Biden's first week in office. He signed the executive order that temporarily suspended new oil and gas leases on federal lands. And by the way, just to throw into all of this, wholesale inflation rose 11% in April, remaining near the 40-year high.
Wow.
So as we are talking about all of this, they're shutting down more ways that we might be able to become more energy independent, which is where we were before Joe Biden got into office. They're pushing renewable energy. They're pushing green energy. And it's interesting because, I think this was over the break. Delano, you said, never let a crisis go to waste. And I don't even have to say that that's what they're not saying, because I think that they've actually said that out loud about this particular thing. They're telling us what they're doing, which is, we don't really care that you guys are suffering with higher prices. We are going to use this to push our own agenda through.
Yeah, and I think this is consistent with, leftist ideology is always use the things that happen in this world, oftentimes problems that they create, to reshape the world in their own image. It really is a God complex in many senses. So when they say never let a crisis go to waste, that's exactly what they mean. Now, for the average person, right, you're feeling it at the pump. The next time I'm down in Dallas, I'll probably have to ride my bicycle from DC. So that's going to be
a long trip.
That's a long trip. But it's one of those things where they really want to reshape at least 1/6 of the economy. I've heard Nancy Pelosi talk about we're trying to save the planet. And I'm just like, you guys can't even keep people safe in their own cities.
Right.
How can you save the planet? But again, this is a part of their ideology, and they will use whatever they can to implement that. And this just happens to be the latest thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Nancy Pelosi, she hails from an area in California where there's a bunch of homeless people
Correct.
and, drug users laying out on the streets, but she's definitely going to save the world.
Right. Yeah, and I like that when you say you can't even keep us safe in our own cities. We have a mayor, our mayor just elected, first female black mayor. Woo, we should all be excited. Her solution for the crime in the city was it's secret. Oh, I can't reveal it. Yeah, and meanwhile, crime has just skyrocketed.
It's so good, I can't even tell you.
Right.
Wow.
And so it's like, yeah, I don't expect anybody to be able to do anything about climate, and you can't keep me safe in my own city. That's a great point.
This is really interesting. So under President Trump, not just because of Trump, yes, he gets credit, but we should give first, God the credit that we have amazing natural resources in this country. So when you tap into those natural resources, and the earth continues to produce, she will continue to produce. When we did tap into it, we were energy independent, and we were a net energy exporter.
Right.
We actually stabilized the Middle East from war by just being energy independent. The Saudis said, we no longer rule the world by oil. We better start building sporting complexes and major mecca centers, like the cities of Neom and Tech and, I'm going to draw a comparison. Poland is not energy independent. They're fully dependent. They do not have natural resources, and they're dependent on the Russian pipelines. What do you think Poland's inflation rate is this week? 12.3%. A completely energy dependent country is at 12.3%. We're at 11 point something. We're supposed to be in a completely independent state. Yes, Joe Biden, your decisions and policies absolutely will and is crippling America.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Speaking of good old Joe, I want to play for you. We always like to play the clips of Joe Biden that make you go, huh? What exactly is wrong with him? He is, by the way, still refusing to take responsibility for inflation, as you pointed out. But he is deflecting by yelling about long food lines and calling Trump like the MAGA king, I guess. Watch.
Under my predecessor, the great MAGA king, the deficit increased every single year he was president.
He was what?
Remember those long lines you'd see on television? People lining up in all kinds of vehicles just to get a box of food in their trunk.
Why are you yelling?
How quickly we forget. People were hurting.
Were?
And what did the MAGA crowd want to do? Forget it. Forget it.
What?
God, this is the United States of America. The idea that people would have to wait in line an hour, hour and a half to get a box of food in their trunk. It's just unbelievable.
Literally, he's saying this at the same time that there is a baby formula shortage and people cannot.
Which they created. The Fed created that shortage.
Right. We had Elijah Schaffer on the show yesterday. He's like, my wife just went. I mean, they're in like suburbia, outside of Dallas proper, and he's like, my wife went into the grocery store and couldn't find any chicken. So it's just very interesting that he is trying to assert that those problems were only present under Donald Trump. Well, of course, Donald Trump responded to the MAGA king. So those of you who are listening, he responded on Truth Social with a little meme that has him, and it says the return of the great MAGA king. It's like the Lord of the Rings picture, which is so great that he's having fun with it. But, I mean, these people, who is instructing Joe Biden to say these kinds of things like they're going to work?
Right.
Well, you just call a thing, 100 times what you want it to be, and people will start believing it, right? And so, but I think those days have passed, honestly, guys. I think we're in an era now where Americans have look, tough times create strong men and strong women. And we are now seeing men and women wake up and go, you can lie to me, but I'm telling you, I went to the store myself.
Exactly.
And that's what I think is going to be.
That's why your mayor is saying, just don't tell them this crap.
Exactly.
That's what I think is going to be the catch, is that every American is seeing it for themselves.
Right.
So how can they believe that?
Yeah, that's what it is. And listening to Joe Biden, he was hollering like somebody hit his Geritol. But it's like,
in the asylum.
everyday people are going to the gas pumps. They are going to the grocery store. They see the difference in the prices. I hear people that I know for sure voted for Biden complaining about the gas prices, complaining about the groceries. I had a friend call me to say, I just put $55 in my van and guess what it got me? And I'm like, what? Half a tank. And he was so angry, and he voted for Joe Biden. And so people are waking up and saying, wait a minute. So no matter how loud he screams or what he says, you're going to have to really convince the common man that it's not your fault, because people know that it's your fault. And I was talking to my best friend last night, and I said, you know what I want to do? I want to go to the pumps and put on some loud music and just start doing the electric slide at the pumps. Like, pull up to Coachella. This is what y'all did. This is what you voted for. And just, antagonize the people out there. And just, maybe
Shamika's going to go Alex Stein on
She
her.
is. Delano, last word on this.
I mean, I agree with what both Yaku and Shamika said. I mean, these are manufactured crises. And, the Biden administration can try to come up with fancy names. They can talk about Putin price hike. They can blame the previous administration, the ultra MAGA king, which I actually think is
I think that's like pretty badass.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I'm into that.
Yeah, but as you said, people, they see with their own eyes. They're feeling it in their own pockets. And no amount of lying or diversion can take away from that.
Yeah. All right, we've got more to come, but we got to take a quick break. We'll be back.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that Trump.
Isn't that so funny? And the left is so bad at it. A record number of Americans died from drug overdoses in 2021, according to new CDC data. This is 107,622 Americans who died from overdoses in that year. This would be the largest number of Americans who have died from overdoses in a single year, and a 15% increase since 2020, which is really saying something considering what happened and what went on in 2020. Yaku, I'm going to go to you first, because I know this is, you do a ton of work down at the border, and right in conjunction with what I'm talking about here. But I also want to bring up, just for reference here, we talked about those safe smoking kits that the government was sending out, and the government said that it was a myth that they were going to include free crack pipes. That actually was not a myth. So the crack pipes are actually available in these safe smoking kits, all up and down the East Coast, Boston, New York City, Washington, D.C., and so on. So they really are, as overdoses are up, the administration is sending you the crack pipe.
Yeah, and look, people say Yaku's tinfoil hat. It's not. This is population control. This is literally part of that radical left agenda. Yesterday, I was at the Mexico-U.S. Bicentennial Attorney General Summit, and I sat here with over 20 attorney generals, and we discussed this in depth, fentanyl, and we talked about fentanyl, carfentanil. China is formulating fentanyl, and they're stamping it as Adderall, as Xanax in Mexico. Mexico's government knows about this. They're flooding the U.S. markets. We're having teenagers die at epic proportions because they're taking Adderall from their friend. So if your child is on Adderall, mom, you tell your child today, they do not put it in their mouth if it didn't come from the pharmacy. Where's Big Pharma with a warning saying, hey, someone is, there's an imposter, but the left will not say a word about this. And of course, we'll send you a crack pipe, because how easier to indoctrinate a people than to just keep them addicted or let them kill themselves, right? So this all lines up with their mantra, but we need to know, we've seized over 3,500 pounds of carfentanil in this country in the last year. That can kill 200 million Americans. And the administration knows this. And I sat yesterday with Ambassador Salazar, the Biden ambassador to Mexico, and he said nothing in a whole summit about Title 42, open borders, nothing about drugs flooding our market. 347 Americans die per day from fentanyl.
Wow.
That's a Boeing 747 falling every day. I bet you, I'll close with this. If 747s fall in the next 3 days in a row, the FAA shuts down travel until they fix it. But no, nothing from the administration as our kids are dying from fentanyl.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't even know those numbers, and that's astounding. I never fell for the whole, no, it doesn't include crack pipes, because someone actually did a video where they went to one of those places and got a crack pipe. Wow. So it's like, even when they were trying to cover and say that it didn't, I knew the truth. And so I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised, I pay attention to Black Twitter, although it gets on my nerves at times, and I saw the video months ago that it includes a crack pipe.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that this points to is just the level of despair in this country. And we have more material resources and material goods than probably any people in the history of the world, but there's so many people who feel so hopeless that some subset of them do turn to drugs, and it's unfortunate. And I see this as directly linked to the decrease in religious affiliation among Americans, because if all there is this life, sometimes when this life gets difficult, you just say, well, I just want to numb the pain, and I don't see those two things as a coincidence. So as we've become a much more secular country and have turned our back on God, I'm not surprised when more people turn to substances to basically alleviate the pain that they may be going through.
Yeah. All right, we've got more when we return.
Did you see the professor?
All right, before we go, I just want to play this. Libs of TikTok gave us another gem this morning, educating us on apparently a brand new dessert-themed gender. Watch.
Okay, I would describe xenogenders as a gender that could not typically be described with terms such as masculinity, femininity, neutrality, androgyny, things like that. It's more of not how you relate to a particular gendered experience, but more of how you relate to things. For example, cake gender. I know a few people who personally use this. It's typically described as them feeling light and fluffy or sweet and warm, and it's not something that you could typically describe with the terms masculine, feminine, androgynous, etc. Another example of cake gender would be if someone feels like they have different layers or flavors to their particular gender.
Oh my God. That's not a gender!
So does it mean you're edible? So all of a sudden now cannibalism will come in because now we can eat the cake gender? I was with a U.S. attorney yesterday, and he told me that he pulled his kid out of school because his principal wrote them a letter that they have to appreciate the dog and cat genders at the school, and the teachers are told to allow these kids to walk on all fours and put a bowl down at the door. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
This is a fact, with water.
Boy.
Yeah. All I can think of is train a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart.
Yeah.
These children is the result of the parents.
Yes.
So you have to say, parents, where are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Anytime my children encounter something that's wrong, they screenshot it, or they'll call me and they'll tell me, or, because they've been trained properly. When you have your child up here talking about cake gender, it's because the parents in the home are Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Period.
And part of this goes back to where we started in terms of schools. Like I'm sure this person is either a teacher or in a teaching program, because this is what kids are being taught. And to your point, the student, when fully trained, is going to be like their teacher. And it just happens that the school is the major training ground. So as I've said before, we're coming to the point where chromosomes in the bio are going to be much more useful than pronouns in the bio.
Get your kid, as Eric Jalot would say, out of the indoctrination camp.
Out of public schools. Make sure that you are following all of these lovely people. Delano, Shamika, we're really glad that you came.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.